I was contacted, apologies, I was contacted by Kevin from fountainpenrevolution.com, and I have reviewed some of his other pens in the past. He's based in India, he sells Indian pens, but he has also started to make his own pens. And a while ago, he sent me the Triveni pens, these pens that I reviewed. And now he contacted me and he said, I'm launching the Triveni Junior. Would you be interested in reviewing them, or at least trying them out? And I said, sure. And he sent me a nice letter. I just want to point out a few things, because I'm just going to read this because he does a very good job of explaining this. He says, he has sent me two versions, an acrylic version and a green ebonite version. He says a few features of note that are upgrades from our earlier version of the Triveni. The sections now match the body. We installed an upgraded twist style converter instead of the old syringe style, and the inner sections are customized to the nib better than the old Triveni to prevent nib slippage. In fact, you will find that the inner section on the flex version is actually slightly different than that of the fine version. We have done this in order to provide sufficient flow to the flex nib. A lot of Indian pens come with fine nibs that are relatively hard, and one of the nice things is that Fountain Pen Revolution has actually offers flex nibs. So Kevin sent me a flex nib, but he also sent me a fine, medium, and broad regular nib, so that I could try them out. Now, about these pens. So this was an original Triveni, and this is the size of the Triveni Junior. And if you see them side by side, you can see why one is called the Junior. It's just a little bit shorter. One thing I really enjoy about these pens is that the original Trivenis had a section like this. All of them had a section like that, and I think that's the Surwax MB section. But the new Triveni Juniors have a section that actually matches the body. I think that's a very cool feature. Okay, so I got two of these. Let me just recap the regular Triveni. One ebonite, one acrylic. And I think these pens look very cool. So I'm going to cover the parts of the pens. I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about them, then I'll do a writing sample. Now, let's start with the ebonite version. This is green, I would say mottled ebonite. On top of the cap, it's nothing. Then you have this clip, same clip as was on the regular Trivenis. I'm fairly sure, yes, they are. Then you have the barrel. There is a center band that says FPR for Fountain Pen Revolution. The caps unscrew so they won't accidentally pop off. And here you have a nib. This is the broad nib. Of course, you know I like broad, so that's what I put on. Now, as to the converter, you do indeed get a nice, simple twist type converter, whereas the previous incarnations of the Triveni, so the regular full-size Trivenis, let me recap this, had this syringe type, which is like a Parker converter. Let me grab this, so you can see it. You know, very simple push type. It's very simple design. It works, but I personally like those twist types a little bit better, except for cleaning the pens, and this is very useful because you can squeeze water through very easily. Okay, so that's what we have here. And what about the other one? I like the acrylic model a lot. I like ebonite pens like this, but the acrylic model I think looks very cool, very colorful. And Kevin actually says the color name is Giraffe. Well, you can see why this is called Giraffe, because it really has a giraffe's color. A very nice acrylic, as you can see, nicely polished, looks good. Again, the same clip, and here you have the body material, which I think is very cool. And here, too, the section completely matches the body. I think that's a very, very cool feature. This has the flex nib on it, and as you can see, this is a two-tone flex nib. And I really enjoy that because the previous versions of the flex nib, let me see, that was developed for FPR, was just a simple monotone, somewhat matte I would say chrome colored or something. I think it's very nice that you have a two-tone now. It doesn't do anything with the writing performance, it just looks nice. Okay, and of course this pen has a that similar converter. Now, I think that these pens are made entirely out of one piece of material, so I'm fairly certain you can just eyedropper these, and you can imagine with an eyedropper this would definitely hold quite a lot of ink. Okay, I just want to mention the pricing here because Kevin mentions that in his letter. The acrylic, the ebonite version is $92, that's US dollars, or $32 with a flex nib upgrade, and he says, which is almost ridiculous since these are handmade. Well, I agree, for an ebonite pen, that's not bad at all, especially if they are handmade. It's not a bad price, and you get decent flex out of it. The acrylic version is $35 or $38 if you want to have a flex nib. And that means these pens really are affordable. And they are a decent size. So let me show you the size. They are identical size. Let me put this on here so you can see unposted is definitely smaller than the regular Trevenis. Maybe you own one, so I just want to show it to you side by side. As you can see, that's quite a difference. But posted, I think they get a very nice size. For me, it's very comfortable to use. Okay, what do I like about the pens? What do I not like about the pens? Well, as may have been or may have become apparent from these reviews, I enjoy Fountain Pen Revolution. And the reason I like the company is that it's really trying to innovate and make inexpensive pens available to a wide audience. And for all of you out there who say, well, I don't really care about that, I have my Viscontis and my Mont Blancs, etc. That's great, that's great. But if you want a knockabout pen that you can take anywhere, that worst case scenario you can step on and not cry over it because it's a limited edition $1,000 Visconti, these pens, I think you could do a lot worse than buy something like this, because it looks nice, it's flashy, especially I really love this acrylic finish, very nice, and of course ebonite has a lot of fans too. So I like the company, I like what the company is trying to do in trying to make pens available that are not too expensive and that work, because they do actually work. So that's something I like about it. Now, when it comes to the flex nib, you may be aware of the fact that modern flex pens can require a bit of work before they write. I inked up the flex pen sorry, that's the other one, it's on the acrylic. I inked up the flex pen when I got it with, I'm fairly certain that was Waterman Florida Blue or something, and it gave some hard starts. It was a little hard to get it to work. I took out the ink, I cleaned it very well, and that is something that I suppose you should do with any new pen, but I just didn't do it to see what would happen. It gave me hard starts, was a little hard to make it work. I de-inked the pen, I put the nib and feed in about 10% ammonia and 90% water just to degrease it. Took an old toothbrush, brushed the nib and feed. In all, this was maybe 10 minutes of work. Put the nib and feed back in, took up another ink that was a bit wetter, and the thing wrote. So what about the writing performance? Well, I've been quite pleased. The broad nib is not an ultra broad nib, but if you bear in mind that most Indian pens come with very hard fines, and this is actually a nice broad, I would say it's a fat medium for many brands. It's actually pretty smooth and it writes rather nicely. The flex, as I said, there was a little bit of a startup issue. Once that was gone, it wrote. Does it railroad? Yes. If you push it hard enough, it will railroad. That has nothing to do with Triveni pens. This is a thing with modern pens. At least what Triveni has, what Fountain Pen Revolution has done is adapt the feed to the nib, the ink demands of the nib. Flex nibs use a lot of ink, need a somewhat broader channel to get proper ink flow going. And some companies don't do that. There are much more expensive pens that I've reviewed that are supposed to have flex and that have feeds that go on regular fine nibs, and that will not work. So at least they've made an effort to try and get that to work, which I think is very cool. In all, I find these pens very attractive. So if you're interested, check them out. I'm going to do a writing sample next. Of course, that's very relevant so that you can see what the pens do. I'm just going to give you the measurements that Kevin has supplied me with in his letter. The length capped is 13 centimeters, that's 5.1 inches. Length posted is 15 centimeters, that's 5.9 inches. Section diameter is 1 centimeter or 0.4 of an inch. Body diameter is 1.3 centimeters, that's 0.5 of an inch. And the weight of an empty pen is 18 grams or 0.63 ounces. Let's see how the pens write. Kevin, thanks a lot for sending me these pens. I really think you're doing interesting stuff here. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's start with this green Triveni Junior. I'm not going to write down Fountain Pen Revolution. Triveni Junior. This is Mont Blanc Irish Green ink, and this is the regular broad nib. I will do a separate post where I show you all the different nibs, but to make this post to the point, I will just cover the two pens that I also showed you earlier. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This is a simple nib that does what it's supposed to do. It's relatively smooth. As you can see, I wouldn't call this the broadest broad I've ever used, but it's definitely wider than a fine would be, and it works just fine. No skipping, no hard starts. I'll leave it at this for fast writing so as not to run out of space, but no skips, nothing. Alright, as to wetness. Irish Green is a relatively wet ink, and you can see this pen is not exactly a gusher, but it's definitely not dry either. Line variation, almost none. This is a hard nib that does not really offer you a lot of line variation. But if you really want, you can use it for reverse writing. Now this is scratchy, but it will give you a thinner line for people who really enjoy that. Now let's look at this giraffe acrylic model. This one has the two-tone Fountain Pen Revolution flex nib on it. This is also a Triveni Junior, and when we write with it, this is, I'm fairly certain this is Waterman Florida Blue. No matter what it is, the pen writes pretty well. Quick writing, as you can see, it does so without skipping or skidding. Wetness, well, this is a somewhat wet ink, but it does give a nice writing performance. Now, the big thing, of course, the flex. I would say that is rather impressive, and I have primed the feed right before I did the writing sample. The very reason being that I typically do that with modern flex pens when I'm going to flex them, but maybe we should also have a look at this pen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze the ink all the way to the end there. I'm going to plug it back in. I'm going to squeeze, or actually pull out the ink, pull it away from the feed a bit, and then also dry it. I think that should really represent what you get when you have not used the pen for a bit and uncap it. As you can see, it needs a bit of work to start writing, but there we go. And as to flex, I don't know what this is going to do. I'm expecting some more railroading, but that is pretty hard pressure and going relatively fast. if I try to prime the feed again, and maybe I go a bit slower, then even when the feed has been dried out, you can see it picks up. Even when it railroads, it picks up again relatively quickly. If you give it a few seconds to saturate the feed, I mean, and you get a really nice flex performance again. So in all, I have to say I am impressed. Here we have affordable flex pens, or I should say affordable pens, but they come with a flex option that work. You don't need to spend hours tinkering to make them work, because they will work. Maybe you need to clean the feed a little bit, clean the nib a little bit, and there you have it. And then you have a fun pen to play around with, to give you your line variation, and to do everything your flex pen should do. Guys, I hope this was useful. Kevin, thanks a lot for sending me these pens. I enjoy it. I like what you are doing with your company. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.